eye exams to the folks who attend Come to the Banquet. 23 people have received eyeglasses as a result of these exams. The Lions Club has also donated reading glasses to the Book Nook. The next idea of Ellen's was to reach out to the cathedral community to ask for donations of new shoes, used shoes, or money to purchase new shoes, so the Come to the Banquet kids would have a new pair of shoes to wear when they started school in August. This initiative has grown into providing shoes for homeless adults and children at Interfaith Sanctuary, and the adults and elderly receiving services at Corpus Christi House in Boise.
In my mind, I don't even know what to say, but say thank you to you all. Oh my gosh. Thank you for your support.
Bishop, would you like to say anything before I play the next one? Oh, you're muted, I believe.
All the best things I say are under mute. We need a recording. But again, congratulations to Ellen Blackman for Excellent Ministry Award. Amazing things that begin with one act and then snowball and collect other resources and other partners. One of the other things the IEF does, the foundation does, other than taking care of our money, is to provide from their interests that they receive grants to parishes doing unique things in ministry. And so we have a pre-recorded award ceremony with Amy Bergerman, who's from the Foundation Grants Committee. And so now we'll find out to whom the grants are going this year.
Hello to all of you. My name is Amy Brueggemann, and I'm the chairperson of Idaho Episcopal Foundation's Grant Committee. In that capacity, I would like to announce to you today the grants that will be awarded in 2021. In this troubling time of pandemic, you will hear how our parishes are reaching out and helping people. They are feeding them, clothing them, providing hygiene supplies, caring for people's mental health, and as such, transmitting God's love. The need reflected in these grants applications far exceeded the amount we have to give. We are pleased, however, to announce that in 2021, Idaho Episcopal Foundation will distribute $34,920 in grant awards to parishes across the diocese. They are St. Michael's Boise Program Baby Steps applied for money to purchase feeding and nutrition supplies to be used as incentives for participants to attend children's nutrition classes instructed by Central Health District in Boise once a month. The IEF board approved an award of $1,800 for the purchase of height chairs. Holy Nativity in Meridian submitted a grant request for its outreach program, Caring Closet. This program provides essential hygiene and household products to those in need in Eagle, Meridian, and Nampa. These products are handed out to those seeking clothing from Caring Closet and also during its Be Our Guest program serving food. The IEF board approved an award of $2,500 for the purchase of household products and hygiene products, including masks, hand sanitizers for this program. Emmanuel Placerville submitted a grant request to assist children in the Idaho City area to obtain warm winter clothing. Working with counselors in the Idaho City School District, the church will identify the children most in need. 1/3 of the 315 children in the district receive free or reduced meals. 5 of those are homeless. 50 are at risk. Jessica Gaziorowski and Margaret Butters, forgive me, Jessica, and Margaret Butters will administer this project. The IEF board approved an award of $2,000 for the purchase of coats, boots, and gloves for children in need in Idaho City. St. Thomas of Sun Valley applied for seed money for a new outreach program titled Ketchum Community Dinner Curbside. While St. Thomas parishioners have volunteered to cook and serve meals to an economically diverse population for many years, it took this program over from Church of the Big Wood since the pandemic began converting it to a curbside, take and bake dinner distributed to 60 to 70 people on Wednesday nights. It intends to resume dine-in service in the future to meet people's social needs. The IEF board approved an award of $3,340 to cover startup expenses. All Saints Boise submitted a grant request to develop and publish a devotional booklet for the season from All Saints Day through the Christmas season. The target population includes those who use the services of Marie Blanchard Friendship Clinic, Habitat for Humanity, Scouts, AA, as well as others, both inside and outside the congregation. The IEF board approved an award of $1,000 to develop this booklet. All Saints Boise also submitted an application on behalf of Marie Blanchard Clinic, Friendship Clinic, to provide health services to underserved, underinsured, and uninsured Idahoans. The services provided are free and delivered by volunteer professionals and partners in local educational institutions that provide training for future medical professionals. It has recognized the need to also provide mental health counseling for its patients. The IEF board approved an award of $5,200 to Marie Blanchard Friendship Clinic to cover fees for mental health counseling delivered by supervised interns at Boise River Counseling. St. Thomas Sun Valley supported the application of NAMI, N-A-M-I, of the Wood River Valley for a grant to provide mental health services through its new Hispanic outreach program. In this program, NAMI representatives work with families, assisting them to acquire food, interact with community support programs such as police and hospitals when families cannot manage direct interaction, distributing school lunches, and generally reaching out to the Spanish-speaking community. The IEF board approved an award of $4,000 to provide these services. Paradise Point has submitted a grant application for assistance in preparing for summer operations under strict health guidelines caused by COVID-19. While it's unclear what the progression of this disease will be, it is clear that certain changes in operations, equipment, and physical plant adaptations must be anticipated to provide a safe camping experience in 2021. Central to this is how to safely ensure proper air circulation. Industrial air scrubbers can be used to adequately circulate and filter the air in enclosed spaces. The IEF board approved an award of $7,700 to purchase and install circulation and filtration equipment. St. Luke's Weiser submitted an application for St. Luke's Catering Program. This program prepares over 1,000 meals a year, donating any proceeds over costs to charitable causes, including Love Inc. and Paradise Point. It is using some of its proceeds this year to upgrade the stove and exhaust system in its kitchen. It is asking IEF to split the cost of this equipment, which is $4,759. The IEF board approved an award of $2,380 to purchase the stove and exhaust system. St. Francis of the Tetons started the Teton Valley Food Pantry in 2008 and continues to support it with time and treasure. You will hear more about this program because it's one of the programs we'll be donating to at the convention. It has since moved this program from the church to a commercial building to meet the growing need in the Teton Valley. The increased number of clients coupled with the pandemic has stressed its ability to store perishable foods. It asks for our support in the procurement of a commercial refrigeration unit to facilitate operational efficiencies and cost savings. The IEF board approved an award of $5,000 for this project. Again, the total amount to be awarded in these 10 grants is $34,920. I would like to remind you that our next deadline for grant applications is September 1, 2021, and we would invite and encourage an application from every parish. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy. Amy's also in the house. If we could open up her microphone for a moment. Okay. I see her, Amy, there. So as soon as you get your mic open.
Thank you all for your applications. We didn't know whether we would get any applications this year because people were struggling in so many ways. And we were preparing different ways to go with that. But we were overwhelmed with good applications, and we thank you all. We're looking forward to next year, so get your applications ready.
That's exactly right. So thank you, Amy, and to all those congregations, congratulations. And to all of us, all the entities of the diocese that are invested in the IEF, the interest that the IEF collects from those funds, and from its funds, excuse me, that are combined with ours, goes to these grants awards. So congratulations and thank you to everybody who's doing all that work in all those places. Amazing. It now falls to me for my favorite part of the convention. So imagine that we're at the final dinner and we've heard the awards announcements, and it's time for me to acknowledge this year's recipient of the Heart and Hands of Jesus Award. So if you'll bear with me, I'll share this statement with you. Even before the state of Idaho moved into stage 2 of COVID-19 precautions at the end of last April, diocesan congregations were pivoting their energies to provide worship and pastoral care to their parishioners and in responding to community needs. Nearly all of our congregations already had some ongoing mission work in each of their towns and cities. Food pantries, housed or supported by our parishes, had to gather huge quantities of dry goods to meet last paycheck needs. Parishioners that regularly served hot meals saw up to 150% increases in the number of neighbors coming by for a good meal, all accomplished in respectful and hygienic ways. And as you heard previously, a congregation from another denomination had to quit hosting the weekly ecumenical meal ministry. So one of our parishes moved the entire project into their kitchen, into their building, and built and created, I've actually seen it, a curbside stand for meal distribution. Everyone has done something and more so in all the ministries that you're already undertaking. But among all these compassionate, creative responses to the demands of a pandemic, 2 congregations stand out due to their creation of and commitment to entirely new ministries. Last April, seeing the near instant pandemic stress upon the working folk of Valley County, the people of St. Andrew's Episcopal Church in McCall gathered together their personal financial gifts, and beginning with the relationships already established with the McCall-Donley School District and the Heartland Hunger and Resource Center, began to direct funds to town and county neighbors who needed help with food supplies, utilities, dental work, rents, and other essentials that go by the way when workplaces are in lockdown. Since that initial collaboration, what is now known as St. Andrews Cares has also entered into partnership with Shepherd's Home, a foster shelter care service in McCall, and the Children's Medical Fund of McCall. Nearly $5,000 have already been distributed, with nearly the same balance awaiting distribution through those agencies. This immediate response, built upon personal sacrifice and leveraging strong relationships already work in the community, St. Andrews took what they had, offered it to the Holy Spirit's inspiration, divided it among trusted providers, and shared their gifts in anonymity and without constraint. St. Andrews Cares and the people of St. Andrews have stepped up to be the heart and hands of Jesus in Valley County. And with in-person worship suspended, schools out for the summer, and parents and children cringing over the return to school and work in the fall, one congregation listened to the echo in their spacious parish hall and wondered what good use that space could provide. Perceiving the challenge of combining online learning requirements for students with the employment needs of families, the people of Grace Episcopal Church in Nampa were moved to try to ease this complicated burden faced by their neighbors. There was a teacher already volunteering at the house next door, the ministry founded by Grace Church to support single Hispanic mothers. That first volunteer knew another retired teacher who flew in from Florida to help. School at Grace was born. With robust internet service and volunteers to help, the families in the community who do not have the luxury of one parent staying home to help children with their online schoolwork can turn to the School at Grace. Their children enjoy a safe and encouraging space and have the academic and emotional support of an understanding adult to help them. In commendation of this creative and compassionate response to a strident community need, the School at Grace joined St. Andrews Cares as dual recipients of the 2020 Hearts and Hands of Jesus Award in the Diocese of Idaho. That's fun. It's really fun to watch you all do that. Don't do that again. Don't do that again. So we will be reaching out to those congregations. Some of them already know it now. We just heard it now, and there'll be a plaque for both congregations as we've done in the past. So congratulations to those folks, and to all of you. It really is amazing to talk to the soup kitchen folks and the food bank people and everywhere that are opening themselves up to new opportunities to serve in ways that they already have, whereas in these two cases, completely new initiatives. So I believe that concludes all of the intended business side of things for the day. So what I'd like to do is, so that we can kind of shift our gears a little bit, is just take a 5-minute break. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back and I'll introduce our special video, and we probably won't take the full hour that we've allotted there, but please get up, stretch, come around, and be ready to listen with your heart to these 5 guests we have speaking on video. So in 5 minutes, let's come back at that's 7 minutes. All right, see you in 7 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, Chris Cole.
Hello, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
Good. Good to see you. You look
Yes, it's good
great.
to see you. Thank you.
Glad to hear all the. Oh, it looks like we're live on. Oh God, looks like we're live on YouTube. So
Hi, YouTube.
yeah. Hello, YouTube. Should we do a little song and dance or what?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna mute us. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
1 minute warning.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for your patience and understanding as we've taken a little bit extra time to stay, but I'm delighted now to be moving to this next portion to focus once again on the spiritual and theological theme of our convention. Still the church, still the Eucharistic people. As publicized throughout the beginning of preparation for convention, that we've asked 5 individuals, 4 Episcopalians and 1 good Methodist folk person to respond in a short video to our convention theme. So without much more introduction of that, their names will be up and you already have a flyer in your packet about who they are. We'll watch this video together and then come back and we'll probably shorten our afternoon a little bit, but I want to offer some time to go into small groups just to reflect or to acknowledge things that we've heard in the videos. So once again, 5 separate videos. So please, your kind attention, and Brett, we can roll it.
Hello, saints in the Diocese of Idaho. I come to you because of a deep love and respect that I have for Ardell and your Bishop, Brian. Greetings to you on your convention. Still the church, still a Eucharistic people. I'd like to lift for you 3 practices that I believe are universal in the church wherever Christ is followed and worshipped. From the words of Jesus, take, eat, this is my body which is given for you. Do this for the remembrance of me. The practices of comfort, interdependence, and generosity leap out to me. Take, eat. We are living in the midst of a pandemic, over 1 million people dead, civil unrest in the US, economic downturn all around. And we are called to be still with Jesus. Take, eat. Be nurtured by him. We are invited to steward our internal climate and realize the comfort that we receive. I am with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. We are also invited to recognize the act of interdependence contained in the Eucharist. My body given for you. Ubuntu is a teaching from South Africa that is about recognizing how closely interlinked we are. I am because you are is a simple way to translate Ubuntu. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., in a real sense, all life is interrelated. All of us are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. We are all connected. We know this especially during this pandemic. Our interdependence is real. My body, my life, my joy given for you. And finally, the words of Jesus, in remembrance of me. There is a generative generosity within the Eucharist, wherein we are invited then to imitate Christ, to become what we receive, a new creation born from above, remembered. This season of COVID tide invites us to be transformed in some real ways, where we will become more generous with who we are out of a deep gratitude for God and for all that God has entrusted to us, especially one another. I grew up in India, and one of the images that I have growing up is that of a cherry seller. We had these cherry sellers who would stand in street corners, and I remember hearing a story about a little girl who was eyeing these cherries. She didn't have money to buy them, and so this old man who was a cherry seller looked at her after a while and said, "Go ahead and take some." She didn't. She just fidgeted and stood around till he then urged her to come closer, and with his gnarly big hands, he gave some cherries to her, and in her beautiful way, she cupped her tiny hands, and as the cherries were falling and overflowing from her tiny hands, she looked him in the eye and said, "Your hands are bigger than mine." This is the generosity that we are receiving in Christ. We are called to comfort one another, to recognize our interdependence, and be generous with one another. No matter what happens, we are called to be one body. We may have differences of opinion politically and otherwise, but we can be one people because we are one family. Comfort one another. Learn to be interdependent, and always do it with generosity. These are the hallmarks of why we are still the church and how we still are becoming a Eucharistic people. God bless.
Greetings. My name is Shannon Kelly, and I currently serve on the presiding bishop's staff as the Director of Faith Formation and the Officer for Young Adult and Campus Ministries. I was born and raised in Idaho and was sent to seminary by the Church of the Ascension in Twin Falls. Having grown up in a diocese that covers a lot of area meant that I wasn't always able to see or be with those who were most important in my faith life. Many of the people that helped me on my spiritual journey were people from my home church, but there were also those who were spread throughout the diocese whom I had met at Paradise Point or at youth events, and who I might only see once or twice a year. Growing up in that kind of dispersed community taught me that no matter how far apart we are physically, we are still church. We are still God's people. In early March, I was at a planning meeting for the annual Young Adult and Campus Ministries Leadership Conference, which is a key part of the work that I do for the larger church, as it serves as a place of connectivity, learning, worship, rest, and renewal for the young adult ministers and the campus ministers who are spread throughout the country. As we gathered to plan the conference, we began with excitement and hope. However, as our time wore on, we began to hear announcements of the closing of college campuses, of churches, and of entire dioceses. We quickly shifted to planning an online conference, and as we departed Tucson, we left with a sense of disbelief that a pandemic was among us, a sense of wondering what this would mean for our communities, a sense of fear of the unknown, and a sense of dread as the numbers of cases and deaths started to roll in. We weren't sure that an online conference would go over well, or what the worship would look like, or if the people would even come. In the end, we gathered for worship that was moving and meaningful over Zoom. Speakers engaged us in the moment, responding not only to the pandemic, but also to the important things that were going on in the world around us. Our plans sometimes don't play out as we expect, and the Holy Spirit is always moving among us to show us a new way. As Episcopalians, we have become used to gathering for Eucharist together in a church building, and it was painful when that had to stop. But just because we can't gather for Eucharist doesn't mean that we are living without Eucharist. The Greek word for Eucharist literally means thanksgiving. And my friends, we are gathering in thanksgiving. I have seen communities large and small gather online for prayer, to lament, and to hope. Through our grief and struggle as resurrection people, we can see places of grace and gratitude around us. We are still church. All the struggles that we have faced and the endless Sundays of church online have reminded me again and again that the church is not the building. Now, don't get me wrong, I love our worship spaces. I love singing and praying together, but church is bigger than that. Church is wherever we gather, on Zoom, on the phone, on YouTube, physically distanced circles on someone's lawn, prayer circles on Facebook. Where we gather now looks and feels different than what we're used to. But remember the Israelites wandering in the desert for 40 years? Nothing seemed normal to them, and everything seemed like a struggle. And through it all, they were God's people bound together in love and faithfulness and hope for what was to come. During the 1914 pandemic, church registers went blank as churches shut down. When it was safe, they gathered again, and the church was still there. We are still here. For months across the globe, we have heard we are all in this together, and we are, and we continue to be. I've seen communities gathering online for Bible study, Compline, morning prayer, social hour, coffee hour, people gathering online for small groups to support one another, pray together, laugh and cry together. We are the church, no matter how scattered we are, because God's love, Christ's compassion, and the Spirit's stirring is what ties us together. People of Idaho, may you remember that you are the church, bound together in thanksgiving, in love, and faithfulness, and hope. Thanks be to God.
Greetings, grace, and peace to my Episcopal kindred across the state of Idaho. I'm Reverend Karen Hernandez, the Sage District Superintendent with the United Methodist Church. I oversee the United Methodist congregations across southern Idaho and parts of northeastern Oregon. I am grateful for Bishop Thom's invitation to address you today, but I'm more grateful for his leadership in the church, his voice for justice in our state, and for his friendship. I wholeheartedly agree that we are still the church. We are still a Eucharistic people despite these many months of necessary physical separation. We are still called to take, bless, break, and share. Though February was the last time that someone broke off a piece of bread and handed it to me saying, "The body of Christ is broken for you." Now it is that brokenness which makes me feel most closely connected to Eucharistic people. It seems safe to assume that we've all experienced brokenness in different ways, both individually and communally over our lifetimes. But the global brokenness, as I'm experiencing it now, is something quite different. My typical responses to my own brokenness are things like busyness and optimism. Even when I'm feeling broken over issues of injustice, I can respond by engaging in more relationships, practicing more advocacy, working harder, adding more tasks to my list. And now I'm having to admit that those things aren't working, and they never did. As the divisions in our country only deepen, as it becomes undeniable that this nation was founded on principles of racial injustice that was made systemic from our very beginnings. As struggle, sickness, and death moved from pandemic to endemic because of COVID-19, the bad news has been so bad for so long, and it feels like it's coming at me from every direction. I can't escape it, as though God is backing me into a corner, and I'm being almost forced to admit and accept that the only way to address this brokenness is the thing that I have avoided so long and worked so hard to stay away from, and that is God's grace. Now, I know that the Lifeway cards make grace sound really warm and fuzzy, but it's not like that when it gets into the deepest, most raw and jagged, broken parts of myself. In fact, I've come to think of it as the spiritual experience of merthiolate on a wound. Anyone who's ever experienced that remembers it vividly and can tell you all about it. For now, suffice it to say that merthiolate is an old antiseptic that's basically like pouring gasoline onto a skinned knee or a scraped elbow. That's what grace feels like as I relent and begin to receive it now. That's what grace feels like when it reaches the parts of me that want things to go back to normal, the parts of me that want my comfortable, oblivious life back. Grace disrupts all of that. That kind of grace stings something awful because it asks of me, and I suspect it asks of you, that we change our lives. But that's the grace that heals, not by restoring, but by recreating. Like you, I have taken my faith seriously for a long time now. I have been constantly blessed, and I have been broken again and again, but now I am broken so wide open that I'm beginning to learn what it means to share of myself. Friends, we can offer the communion elements following the appropriate traditional rituals. We can do that in our beloved buildings. And if we return to those routines, we will be religious. But we are called to so much more than that. May we commit ourselves to being truly Eucharistic people, those who are broken so wide open that we invite the grace of God to transform our lives from that which is ordinary to that which is sacramental. Amen.
My name's Ann Reed, and I'm a deacon in the Diocese of Southern Ohio, and I'm also the executive director of the Transfiguration Spirituality Center in Cincinnati. Throughout this pandemic, even when we've not been gathered in worship, we've seen the work of the church continue. Many ministries that I've experienced have become more robust, and creative energies have been applied so that those who are economically disadvantaged or challenged can be encouraged and fed. I want to share 2 examples with you, and maybe these examples will help you come up with examples of your own in your conversation today. I work at a retreat center that's been closed since March, and due to COVID, of course, and we were trying to avoid laying off the kitchen staff. And so one of our staff members came up with the idea that perhaps our kitchen staff could be used to cook meals that could be shared with other organizations or agencies that are already reaching out into their communities. And so we did that. And starting in late April, early May, we partnered with one of our sister communities and began serving lunches, dinners periodically. And then we just have expanded that over time. And so now we're serving over 1,400 meals a month. And our kitchen staff hasn't had to be laid off. And through the generosity of the Sisters of the Transfiguration and some grants that we've received and some partnerships with a local food bank, we've been able to sustain this ministry. And we look forward to it going forward. Another ministry that I've been involved in has been with one of the churches that I serve as deacon. And it's a church in suburban Cincinnati. And so one of the things that we've been doing periodically is taking a pickup truck and filling it with non-perishable items for various food banks and things like that with which we have an association. But we also are host to Interfaith Hospitality Network. And during the pandemic, we haven't been able to do that. So we've decided to fund the hotel rooms the weeks that we are not able to actually host them. And our partner congregations are also doing things like providing meals and also doing collections of toiletries and food items that are appropriate for those who are staying in hotels. So the ministries are continuing, even though it's happening slightly differently. And in some cases, we've come up with new ways of doing things or just new things to do. So it strikes me that even though we are doing all this ministry, that it's still the church. It's not happening the way we always used to have it happen, but we're still the church. We're still out there. We're still providing love to those who need it. There's a really good chance in both of these cases that the kinds of things that we've been doing also won't end once we kind of go back to church as we used to do church. Chances are good that some of these ministries are going to continue. Early on in the pandemic, there was this great meme that was floating around that was it was a cityscape, and it had those dialogue bubbles. It was like a cartoon. It had those little cartoon dialogue bubbles, and the bubbles were coming out of windows and doors saying, "I'm the church, I'm the church, we're the church is over here." Whenever we use our creative energy, wherever we reach out in love, the church is there. We don't have to be in our buildings. And although the celebration of the Eucharist hasn't been possible for many of us, the act of giving thanks has never gone away. Some of us have become familiar with parts of the prayer book we'd forgotten all about, like the Thanksgivings on page 836. And in some ways, we're more connected to our friends who are non-liturgical just because we are giving thanks through our daily prayers and our daily lives by giving up ourselves to God's service and by offering our prayers of thanks. It can be challenging to overcome our fears about this virus because it's so easily passed on from one to another. But we've been given wisdom and know what to do to prevent its spread. In the words of the hymn refrain, Jesus says, "Be not afraid, I go before you always. Come, follow me, and I will give you life."
Thank you for welcoming me to your convention. I am Peter Eaton, and I am the Bishop of the Episcopal Church in Southeast Florida. I'm deeply grateful to my friend and brother, your Bishop Brian Thom, for inviting me to be a part of your reflection during your convention. We Episcopalians make a great deal out of being a Eucharistic people. We have embraced the words of the prayer book that remind us that the Holy Eucharist is the principal act of worship on the Lord's Day and other major feasts. And unless there is some genuine impediment, most Episcopalians expect to find the Eucharist in all our churches every Sunday and often during the week. This is as it should be, of course. But for the first time in the lifetime of almost all of us, over the last 7 months, most Christians who would usually celebrate the Eucharist on Sundays together in church have not been able to do so. This has been the case for Roman Catholics and Orthodox, as well as for Anglicans. It has been a real loss. And yet our ability to celebrate the Eucharist as we could before COVID should not be stopping us in our tracks. After all, we have been participating in the Eucharist for a very long time, and we might ask ourselves what effect our Eucharistic practice has actually had on us. Let's clear up a few misconceptions. First, it is crucial to understand that we do not do Eucharist or make Eucharist. We have become very lax in our language about the Eucharist over the years. The Eucharist is not primarily an action that we perform or in which we engage. It is a mystery because it is the Eucharist that makes the church. It is not the church that makes the Eucharist. So it's better to say that the Eucharist embraces us. The Eucharist is something that we become. The Eucharist is, in a fundamental sense, beyond our control. And while it is right to say that we celebrate the Eucharist, we say this not in the sense of a party that we throw, but in the sense of a celebration of heaven come down to earth, in which we are gathered by the Lord. And in this mystery, the one who acts is the Lord. And we understand this most obviously at the beginning of the Orthodox liturgy, when the priest says, "It is time for the Lord to act." Those are the words that we say, inwardly at least, just before every Eucharist begins. It is not time for us to act. It is time for the Lord to act. Then we remember the fourfold Eucharistic action of taking, blessing, breaking and pouring, and sharing. At an obvious level, this is what we do with bread and wine. We take it, we bless it, we break it and pour it out, and then we share it. But this action is only the beginning. It's only at one level the surface of what is going on. Because the manner in which we handle bread and wine in the Eucharist is the way in which we are giving ourselves over to God to be handled by Him. We too are meant to be taken, blessed, broken and poured out, and shared in the unfolding of God's mission, in which, by virtue of our baptism, we are fellow workers. This was the pattern of Jesus' life, and so it must be the pattern of our own. The Eucharist is a reminder of what we are for. We must always be mindful of what this means and the cost that it involves. In the Eucharistic action, we place ourselves in God's way not simply to be able to receive Christ's body and blood, but to be able to embody the totality of Christ's life, his poverty, his selflessness, his love for those whom everyone else forgets or wants to avoid. But more than this, we are called to embody his suffering, his passion, his death. Only when the Eucharist begins to work this mystery of the fullness of Christ's life within us can we begin to think of ourselves as a Eucharistic people. And this is clearly not something that we can accomplish ourselves. This must be wrought in us by God Himself. The work of giving ourselves to God so that our lives as individuals and as communities may be more authentically Eucharistically formed is work that must happen every day, whether we are able to be present at the Eucharist that day or that week or not. The grace that the Eucharist imparts to us is not passing, but permanent, and it should have made a great deal of us by now. So much, in fact, that we ought to have been able to have lived Eucharistically shaped lives even during the pandemic, when we have not been able to gather for the Eucharist as we did before it. We remember that our history and our spiritual tradition are brimming over with those who were prevented from receiving Holy Communion for years, sometimes for decades, yet whose lives shone with the transformation that the Eucharist accomplished in them. We are all wondering when we shall be able to gather again as we once did. But it seems to me that if we focus on that question, we shall avoid the deeper question that lies at the heart of this COVID season of absence from the altar. The question is not, how soon can we regather? The question is, what has the Eucharist made of us? And how are we living a Eucharistically shaped life? A life that must include self-sacrifice, suffering, crucifixion, even death, along with healing and resurrection. How are we living all of that in this season of danger and difficulty and separation from each other? It is precisely in times like this that the true effect of the Eucharist on us and in us will be known. Let us not be distracted about concern for the future. Jesus warned us of that kind of distraction too. There is the work of this day, of this moment, of this season, and we miss an opportunity to become more Eucharistically shaped people if we do not attend to the deeper question of this season. Let me close these brief thoughts with a prayer from the Maronite liturgy. The Maronites are the national church of Lebanon, and they are deeply formed by the richness of the Syrian tradition. And this prayer that I'm going to pray with you is the prayer that the priest or the bishop says at the end of every Eucharist. It is a prayer to the altar, and it is a very clear prayer. The celebrant acknowledges that he may never be able to return to the altar, but he prays that the mystery that he has just celebrated may have so transformed him and those with whom he has celebrated that he may be able to stand before the heavenly celebrant of every Eucharist, the Lord himself, changed by the Eucharist over which he has so often presided. This is a good prayer, I think, for all of us, for clergy and laity alike, for this ongoing COVID season when we wait to return to the altar together. And it will be a good prayer for us to pray even after that time, because it reminds us of what the Eucharist is meant to make of us. Let us pray. I leave you in peace, O holy altar, and I hope to return to you in peace. May the offering I have received from you be for the forgiveness of my faults and the forgiveness of my sins, that I may stand without shame or fear before the throne of Christ. I do not know if I shall be able to return to you again to offer another sacrifice. I leave you in peace. Amen. May God bless you, and may God bless your convention and all the work that you are doing in God's name for God's mission in the Episcopal Church in Idaho.
right.
Okay, that's great. I'm on. Well, brothers and sisters, thank you for giving yourselves, giving all of us the additional time to listen to those reflections by 5 great members of our church and our church ecumenical. We're going to shift now into small groups again, just so we don't lose some of the best pieces of what we heard. We'll just invite you to invite the moderators to help you offer a bit of what you heard. Which speaker caught your attention the most? Which one perfect phrase or interpretation captured your attention or your heart? After that, we'll come back for just a wee bit, not to poll everyone else, but just to mark the end of a day and prepare for tomorrow. So if Nick is getting us ready, we will once again go into our small groups. And Nick and friends, because of the hour, I think we're going to take about just 20 minutes. And then we'll come back and close this part of our day.
Great. All right. So those of you who were here last night know the drill. You will be automatically placed into your small groups. The groups range from 16 to 18 people. There are about 16 of you who will stay in the main room. So I'll be here with you and I'll tell you when we're ready to go. But if you're all ready, here we go.
Thank you.
All right. You all are in the main room, but this is your breakout room, the 14 people here right now. So let me just make sure we all have the permission to unmute. One moment. All right. You all should be able to talk now.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. You're going to have to take mute off so we can hear you.
That's right. Yeah. All right.
Brett, do you want to lead this? Or Marty? Or Nick?
Either way, I think Brett and Marty were listed as breakout room moderators if either of them want to take it, but I'm also willing to help.
All right, go for it.
Thanks, Brett. All right. Moderators, I think I was a moderator, but I don't have the questions, Lisa. Do we have specific
There are
questions?
no questions, Marty. It's all just whatever people want to talk about.
That is so wonderful. It's a round robin event for us. And I'll just go ahead and start just to kick us off because I'll be honest with you. This was something that was a key piece for what I was going through early on in the spring of understanding what we were going to do with camp and how are we still going to be camp without being able to be physically in touch with each other. And so when I started to, within the Episcopal Camp Network, we started meeting with other executive directors and program directors. And I realized once we were all together starting to conceive of what was going to happen, we realized that we were still going to be camp, even if we weren't going to have physical camp. And within the church, we found out very much so that we were still providing the ministry, still providing connection and community. So everything that was spoke about with our speakers was reiterated in my own thoughts. I will tell you that the story of the cherries, your hands are bigger than mine, brought me to tears. And it was something that was overwhelmingly true in every aspect of my life for the mentors that I have had that have given so much of their time and their assets to me. Yeah, what a home run that was, right to the heart for me. Thanks for listening. I'm not going to pass it to anybody. I'm just going to, let's just leave it wide open for the next person that thought to jump right
I thought the first speaker really nailed the
what's happening with the pandemic, where we say we're all in this together. And he talked about the comfort. I took notes. The comfort, the interdependence, and then the generosity. I think all of our people, if we're not doing our ministry in our communities physically, for some reason it had to stop. I know that individually we're reaching out to people that need help, whether it's phoning someone that you know lives alone, or I think
do anything.
Anyway, I thought every one of the speakers was powerful, and I was wondering if the videos would be available to watch again. There was a lot in there. So thanks.
Good news is that the videos will be available. They'll be available on the Diocesan YouTube page and Facebook page, and I'm sure will be shared in a newsletter going forward. So it's all recorded, which is good news.
It'll also be on the website. As of Tuesday morning, it'll be on our
Lisa, we caught you there for
in
a
case
second.
you didn't hear me, I said it'll be on the website. Hey, Marty, I'm having trouble hearing you when you speak.
Can you all hear me better now?
Yeah, a little. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry, for sharing. That was awesome.
You're welcome. Oh, I've got a cat.
That's a
what
beauty.
happens when you sit down at our house? You get a cat.
That's a beauty.
I've had this little dog, laying right here this whole time.
I have a dog too, Nick.
Kathleen, that's great.
I also thought the first speaker was great, and I did write down the same notes as you did. And then on to the thoughts about the Eucharist and the meaning that we should be thinking about, and we can have our own Eucharist during the video or during our own Sundays. And then maybe we should be thinking about a little bit more about what it means, and that we are still a church.
Very much so, Chris. Thank you very much.
I'd like to comment that the church doesn't make the Eucharist makes the church. And that in just a nutshell, just in a back and forth, that is right on. I remember my dad went to Trinity Episcopal.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
In Bend, Oregon. And because of an arsonist, their church burnt down. A beautiful old, 150-year-old church burnt down. My dad's comment to me was, no, we're not upset with this guy. We can meet in a tent. And this is in a cold climate. Bend, Oregon is not warm. He says, we can meet in a tent. The church is not the building. And I thought, that's great wisdom coming from my dad. And I've retained that as well. So we're not the building. We are the people of the building. And that's what that comment about the Eucharist said to me.
I also likened the comparison of the, with our COVID situation, and then the Israelites wandering the desert for 40 years. So we have nothing to, to complain about, I guess.
I really appreciated the third speaker, Karen Hernandez, too. I appreciated her saying we're called to be more than religious. We do love our rituals, and but we're called to more than that. And having to set that aside for a while is maybe a good discipline to really think what are we called to be, and that grace calls us to change our lives. Change is hard and we resist it, but here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
Okay. Hi. So I was the one who received the videos as they came in. And in that process, I had the opportunity to view them in a different order. And so that was really interesting to try to decide what order we wanted to show them in that we felt like would be a good flow. But the message that I think linked all of them is, and I think it links all of us together, is if you're feeling spiritually bereft, you are missing something, even though you may not be able to be physically with others. If you reach out, whether it's through Eucharist or just some other kind of ceremony that you can do through Zoom, you find that way to fill your spirit again, and you're no longer bereft. And I really appreciate it that all of them kind of touched on something like that. And I love seeing the kitty cat having a good time. He's one of me. I'm one of him.
He has an interesting story how we got him.
What is that?
Oh, does anyone know where Clyde, Idaho is? It's between Howe and between Chalice and Salmon. And it was about 28 below zero. And he showed up at someone's house. Well, her nearest neighbor's a mile away. Her inspiration was to drive him to Arco and drop him off at the Episcopal Church. And the next day she showed up at our house. She knew us. We're 2 doors down from the church, and she dropped off a sack of canned food and a sack of dry food. We hadn't even seen the cat. And the next day he was sitting on our porch. And that was in December 2016, and he's been here ever since.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
Person who was talking about that we're asked to change our lives, it made me think of Turn in Bishop Curry's The Way of Love. Turn was one of the steps.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a fog of cat hair. Hey.
The fog of cat hair is like glitter.
I do think I'm like this, like for those of us who, like, I think one of the speakers said something about how, I've been a person of faith for a long time. And so we think we already did change our life, right? Like, oh, I did that. And we're asked continually to change our lives and to be open to where the Spirit is leading us. And I think this is a really deep time of that, where we're tired of it, but we're still here. And so it's just a good reminder. I heard somebody, who was it? It might have been the bishop yesterday. Somebody yesterday said something about being open to where the Spirit, it was Jonah. He said it maybe in our staff meeting, but being open to where the Spirit is leading us instead of fighting where we are, be open to where we're being led. And that has been really helpful for me to really meditate on.
Yeah, we need to let go a little bit to do that. And that's not what we've been trained to do. And
Right.
yet now we have, we weren't certainly going to force the hand of us being able to, put ourselves in a position to be able to rest and reflect. And so the Spirit forces our hand, and we will fight it tooth and nail until we realize that this was the work of the Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
How many of you are doing something in ministry that you never thought you would be doing? I mean, have you ever? I can certainly say I'm pretty much of an introvert, and I'm constantly reaching out to people I don't know in our community. And it's actually getting easier. Thanks be to God.
Yeah, I mean, I would have never expected to be doing what I'm doing right now at the beginning of the year. I work with Kathleen, and my main job at St. Thomas is running our theater company with my colleague Sarah, which I've been doing for a long time. And all of a sudden we couldn't do shows anymore, and we couldn't even do virtual shows anymore because people can't come together, they can't sing together, you can't be in the same room. So I started making videos for the church. Actually, not out of because I wanted to, but we needed to start making videos, and as we went on, they just got more and more in depth, and I would have never expected to be helping with technical support for the diocesan convention. So there was a lot of new skills or old skills refined this year, definitely because of this, and for the future. I think that's a good thing for those of us who've been able to cultivate those new skills or refined skills that we had that we weren't using.
I don't think I realized how much I missed people until we all got together last night. It was just so great to see a crowd.
Yes. Hi, Alex. How are you?
Good. I got kicked off briefly. I had to pause to stretch I've got a bad knee. It's getting replaced in December, but I have to get up and stretch it periodically. And while I was away, the computer decided to exit.
we didn't do that.
My apologies. In terms of, I was just thinking in terms of finding yourself all of a sudden doing things. If somebody hadn't brought that up, I wouldn't have noticed, but yeah, I do. I call people much more frequently than I would have before, just to check and see how they're doing, how they're holding up. And I have a hobby of baking gourmet treats for people. So I've just been quadrupling that. I make a batch almost every day, take it around to neighbors, friends.
What's your specialty?
Queen of Wands is one. The most recent was called Seven Sisters pastry. It's a Danish laminated array of doughs. They kind of look like cinnamon rolls, except they're bathed in custard, and just a delicious confection.
What's your address? No.
Can we be your friend? Yours. I'm the one doing the dropping off.
Coffee hour at your church must be wonderful.
I serve coffee all the time at church. I have for years. But I rarely bake there. Once in a blue moon. Come in and use the commercial kitchen to make 12 dozen cookies.
That's pretty great, Alex. We have 2 minutes left here. We got our 2-minute warning. If anybody has any final thoughts. Threads of Grace Nampa, oh, I see you there.
Well, I'm actually Joy Davis but I had trouble getting into Zoom under my name, and they accepted it. I didn't even know Threads had one, but no,
okay.
this is my first venture in anything to the church. Our church has come back, but I haven't yet. So I've been quarantining a lot. So it's kind of nice to be out.
Yeah.
Joy, it's nice to see you. Do you have any thoughts on the presenters we saw this afternoon?
I thought they all were very, makes you think, I mean, it makes you think, and it makes you realize a lot of things that you're going through, and that it's not all negative. So, yeah. I didn't really pinpoint any one, and I didn't take notes. I'm sorry. I didn't.
No sorries. You don't sorry about that. This is all reflection, Joy, and just being able to hear your voice was joy enough. So thank you for sharing. Shanna and John and Curtis, we don't see you, but I know you're with us, and I hope you're hearing us. But if you wanted to say a few things in this last minute, we'd certainly love to hear your voice as well.
Curtis doesn't have a way to do that. Sorry. His mic is being used by another person at this time.
Just noticed he wasn't on mute, that's all.
I'll say something really quick. My husband had a bone marrow transplant at the end of September. And so we would have to be doing the self-isolating anyway, and everybody's doing it. And it's made it easier for us. So
my husband had surgery on March 12th, and I don't know, went into lockdown on the 13th.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Yeah. So, yeah. In some ways it made it easier, but in some ways not.
Not really.
Everybody's coming back into our room. Here we go. Welcome everybody back.
Yes, welcome back, everyone. I think all 100 or so of us are back in the main room. Sorry if I cut off any conversations. I'm kind of mean like that. I know I did that last night too. But I'll hand it over to Lisa and the bishop to continue with the remainder of the day.
Yeah, there you go. I think no, go one over to your, that one. There you go.
There you all are. Thank you so much. Well, friends, I think we've done enough deep thinking and sharing today, and consumed a lot of energy with, even though we haven't moved very far, to deal with the dynamics of a virtual meeting. So we'll not spend much time here other than to guide us into the rest of the convention, so to speak, which will be in a moment. I'll put us in recess until 10 o'clock in the morning. However, before doing that, to tell you that all the delegates will be receiving a download, an email today yet with tomorrow's service on it, the bulletin for that service, and a printable copy of the homily. Those 3 items will be put out on public media at 10 a.m. tomorrow. So there's still the opportunity for folks to actually use our church service as their Sunday worship. But it also means you can view all of that before then if you wish, or at another time of your convenience. I just would note that the convention is not really over until I say so at the end of the recorded service. So just choose wisely. I would like to thank everyone who's incredible number of folks here who have helped put this virtual convention together. For Sean and Curtis Kissel here from Weiser, manning these computers over here. Carol Keller also giving us a aid in this room. Lisa Brooks next to me here. And then the rest of my diocesan staff, Diana Krumrein, Donovan Kay, Marty Beck, Galina Kashubin, and then our special guests, Nick Cockrell and Rhonda Uber and Brett Mullenberg, who have really been behind the scenes doing many more things than you could ask or imagine to keep this virtual convention going. So our great thanks, my great thanks to all of them. And if I can get myself in the right view here so I can see all of you. Oh, that's not it.
No, you don't want the gallery.
I want the gallery.
Yeah.
If you would join me in thanking all these people who have helped put this convention together.
You just wanted to see everybody wave.
I just want to see everybody do that again.
I'm gonna take a picture of it. Yeah. Woo!
Keep waving. People are taking photographs. That's great. Well done, everyone. So very well done. Congratulations on a successful meeting. And it could have been more than we thought it could be, but we think we did more than we thought we could. So it's been a great achievement, and I thank you all for it. Watch your email boxes for what will be coming to you next. And be warm, be safe, and be well. God bless everybody.